Your viewership helps make Virginia Homegrown a success. For information on how to become a financial partner, please contact Lanny Fields at 804-560-8226 or lfields@ideastations.org. Thank you.
Coming up on the first half of Virginia Homegrown, we'll be learning about organic lawn care with Project Green.
And in the second half of our show, we'll be going to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello to visit with Miss Peggy Cornett, curator of plants, to tour the garden and to learn about trellising techniques. As always, we need your questions via phone and email, so stay tuned for Virginia Homegrown.
It's the end of August and that summer season is almost over. I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to that fall gardening season coming real soon. I'm Peggy Singleman.
And I'm John Thompson. And in tonight's episode of Virginia Homegrown, I'm taking us to Thomas Jefferson's Monticello. We're going to meet with Miss Peggy Cornett and learn about their gardens and also learn about trellising techniques. Now don't forget to send in your questions and emails. The information you'll need will be on the screen. So Peggy, where are you taking us tonight?
Well, John, tonight we're going to learn about organic lawn care. So let's get going. Mark and Megan, here we are in this beautiful lawn. And, you know, this whole lawn is taken care of organically through your company. Mark, tell us a little bit about the philosophy and the changes of the organic lawn care business in the past few years.
Sure, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
So our company is Project Green, and what we strive to do is really just create a great looking, healthy lawn without using all of the pesticides and synthetic chemicals. Okay. So our approach is kind of from the soil up. Instead of just feeding the grass, we actually are feeding the soil and the grass.
Okay.
So we're doing two things every time we're out.
Okay.
We're feeding the soil, we're making the soil nice and happy, and in return, it's actually creating a nice, healthy lawn.
Okay. The benefits of feeding the soil. What are you trying to build in the soil?
So we are trying to build root systems. Healthy roots create healthy plants.
Yes.
We're also trying to manage moisture. So we're trying to keep moisture in the soil around the root zones during the hot summer months.
Yes.
We're also just amending the soil as well. So correcting the pH levels, just creating a healthy, happy soil.
That's fantastic. And here it is August and the lawn is lush and beautiful.
It's been a good year.
Yes.
The spring was nice and wet. The summer was a little tough, but we got through it. It also creates, you know, a nice yard that is a little bit less disease susceptible and insect susceptible.
Yeah, because you have the stronger plants, so they're healthier.
We do, and each application's, you know, introducing good biology to the soil and actually pulling water towards those root systems.
Fantastic. And Megan, environmentally, what's the positive points of using the organic lawn care methods?
Okay, so there's a bunch of different things involved with that. So the big thing, especially, we're in the Chesapeake Bay watershed here. And the James River is so close, so what we like to focus on is reducing runoff. With the organic products, you're really getting down to the roots, you're getting down to the soil, so it's really reducing your runoff there.
So you're making a more, you know, organically, I want to say, friable soil, so the moisture, the water goes into the soil rather than runs off on a compacted soil.
Correct.
Right.
So, you know, you're really reducing your runoff there, and it's really, really improving the watershed.
Yes.
And you're reducing pesticides into the watershed. So this year already, we've reduced 2,000 pounds of pesticides into the watershed. So
that is wonderful. That's great to be able to say for one company and the impact that it's having.
It's been really nice. We thank everyone in Richmond that's, you know, come on board and let us help them do that. So reducing our footprint is really nice, and you know, we don't have to put out all of those synthetic products or all of those synthetic fertilizers, because the fertilizers that we're putting down are actually getting absorbed into the plant and they're getting absorbed into the soil.
Right.
So the efficiency of the products we're using is a lot better than, you know, the chemical or the chemically made up stuff.
Exactly. So what are some steps homeowners can do? I mean, I know you have a wonderful company that does this, but you know, we have a lot of DIY folks. And I was just wondering, what are some of the steps homeowners could apply to their lawn care practices?
Well, the crazy thing is, with lawn care, one size does not fit all.
Right.
So you kind of have to take your lawn into consideration And that's kind of what we've done over the last few years. We've really tested a lot of products, and some products that work in California, they don't work here. Our soils are completely different.
Yes.
So, and this neighborhood, for instance, is completely different than a neighborhood in Wyndham, because some of those are newer, they don't have as much topsoil, so we have to treat them a little bit differently. So the homeowner really should take that into account. Am I a newer neighborhood? Am I an older, more established neighborhood? And what is my soil type? So a soil test is great.
Yes.
It's going to tell you a lot about your lawn, and it actually gives you a background on what's there and what you need to put down. So once they do that, the summer was tough for us. Yards are starting to decline a little bit as far as the heat and drought and everything else. So aeration is really, really key as we're moving into fall. We like to do our aerations in September, just because that's when the soil starts to cool down. That's when the grass actually says, all right, I can grow now, I can be a little bit happier.
Come out of the summer dormancy. Yes.
Absolutely, yes ma'am. So we did a little bit of aeration here today, and what that does is that actually opens up the soil. It allows for water to infiltrate, it allows nutrients to get down into the soil, and it gets oxygen down so those roots can actually breathe a little bit better.
Absolutely. You mentioned water with irrigation. Many homeowners feel that they have to run their irrigation constantly. What's your, I'll say, theory on irrigation?
Irrigation's tough. Sometimes it's a necessary evil, but sometimes, if a homeowner looks outside and he says, oh, it's brown, it must be because I haven't watered enough.
Yes.
That's usually not the case. That's usually, hey, if one's good, two's better.
Right.
That does not apply here.
Right.
So, an inch to an inch and a half a week is really what tall fescue wants. So if you have just a normal sprinkler that you set out in the lawn, a lot of times you can use like a tuna can. That's usually about a half an inch tall. So you can put that out where the water is actually hitting the ground and measure what you put out. So if we have rain throughout the week, you can take that out. So watching the weather is important, but also getting that inch to inch and a half is really important.
Yes.
So that's gonna minimize stress on the lawn.
Yes.
And so what we would recommend is 3 to 4 days during the week for 25 to 30 minutes at a time.
Yes.
So that's what we really like to follow, and sporadically.
So it has time to sink in and not just puddle.
It does. The 5 to 10 minute waterings every day creates a really shallow root system.
Yes.
And that's going to stress out the lawn pretty quickly, especially during the summer.
Well, speaking of shallow roots, it's important for the top part to be considered too. So what mowing height do you suggest homeowners use?
July and August right now, 4.5 inches is nice. I know that can be a little tall for some people, but 4 inches is really, really good right now, because more sunlight that gets down to the soil is going to stress the plant out, and it's going to allow for weed activity or crabgrass to invade. Once we actually start moving towards the fall, you can drop it back to about 3.5 inches. That way, it doesn't get a little fluffy by the time it needs to be cut.
Right.
So I would say 3.5 inches in the fall, 4.5 inches in the summer, and then another 3.5 in the spring.
So you're wanting that tall grass to help shade so that you don't have the weed impact that you have. Well, that's great news. This is wonderful. With a beautiful lawn like this, I'm sure there's disease. So how do you manage disease in this lawn?
So some people, they're okay with it. They understand it's a normal process, but some people also want that controlled.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple options for them, either being on the site, monthly throughout the summer, doing treatments to kind of combat that disease activity we can do, or like I said, some people can actually just let it go, and we know aeration seeding's right around the corner, and we can get a nice, disease-resistant strain of grass put in the fall.
Well, this lawn is beautiful. It's a testimony to what you all are doing here, and the numbers speak for themselves. So organic lawn care is something that we can all consider for our own homes. And I thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for having us.
Oh, certainly. This has been very eye-opening and enlightening, I know, for a lot of our gardeners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark, that was a beautiful location to be able to do such a great segment, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, thanks for coming out and visiting the site, and thanks for having me here.
Oh, certainly. Before we get started, because we have some interesting things here on the table to talk about, I just want to remind everybody that we do welcome your gardening questions via phone call and also via email, and the information is there on your screen. And I'm sure we're going to I'll say trigger some questions with this evening's show. So speaking of, I'm going to say we've got these wonderful canning jars here, and this one here is very familiar to me right now. It wasn't a few weeks ago, but now it's a very close friend of mine as I walk into work in the morning.
Absolutely. This is a really common occurrence right now in Richmond.
Yes.
So, the heat has been really tough. We haven't had a whole lot of rain recently, so we're seeing a lot of drought stress.
Right.
And one cool thing about it is, applying organic products or organic-based products to your lawn are going to help them actually recover once the environment cools down a little bit.
Right.
So these are taken from the same yard. This is more of a shaded area, and this is a full sun area. So as you can see, if we had a little bit shade or a little bit cooler air temperature and soil temperature, the lawn is pretty green and pretty happy.
Yes.
Right here where we have full sun, we have a lot of stress, and the soil is getting nice and warm, well, we have some drought stress.
We do. And many people have to remember is drought stress can be stress and the plant dies, or it could go dormant, because grass can go dormant in the summertime.
Absolutely, and that's what you're seeing here. You have a mixture where the grass is stressed out, but some of it's dormant. It's not dead. It's going to come back once it cools down.
Right.
But we do have some dormant lawns out there right now.
We do have some dormant. So they go to sleep for the summer. The
Yes,
summer
ma'am.
siesta.
That's right.
Well, these are two different conditions, and many of our lawns are looking this way. We wish they were still looking this way, as in this past few weeks.
Absolutely.
So how do we get from here to here?
Well, one good thing is right now fall is right around the corner, which I know
Amen.
we're all very thankful for.
Yes.
So we have the fall where the weather's going down. You can start putting applications on the lawn with organic-based products, and that's going to help the recovery. It's going to build up the organic matter in the soil. It's going to get the active biology moving around a little bit more, and it's going to be unlocking some nutrients and adjusting some soil pHs.
Exactly, and you're mentioning the products. I have two right here in front of me, and jokingly we've been saying one looks like dark roast and the other looks, but you've got two completely different products with two completely different goals in mind with using these products. So let's, one thing, there is a marked difference in applying these. These are actually more of a suspension rather than, a solution or. So what's in here?
So they are. So this product is really cool. It's actually a compost tea base. It also has 17 other ingredients inside of it. So starting with the compost tea, we actually have some active biology in there. So we only have about a 2-day span once it goes into a water solution to apply it. Otherwise, the living biology starts to die off. We have mycorrhiza in there that's going to help your root systems maintain more moisture. So getting these products into the soil now, once the cooler temperature, once irrigation systems are running, once seed is put down, it's really going to help moisture be retained in the soil.
Well, speaking of the soil, we all think of soil as just an inert matter, for the roots to grow into and the nutrients to sort of hang out some way and for the roots to pick them up. But people don't realize the amount of microbial activity that is in that soil.
Absolutely, and that microbial activity is really, really important. So whatever we're applying to the lawn, whether it be an organic product or a synthetic product, it has to be broken down and it has to be made plant available. So the active biology and the microbes in the soil play a key role in breaking those products down and making them plant available. So they make them more efficient. So basically, this is a very efficient product where it's getting to the soil, it's amending the soil, it's also getting nutrients to the plants a little bit better.
Right, so we're getting those strong roots, which will give us the strong top. So.
We are.
So tell me about this product.
So this is kind of our end of summer going into fall. It's a soil health builder.
Okay.
So it has a little bit of K in it, so it's going to be a little bit of all-around plant health going into the soil,
K
into the
meaning
plant.
potassium.
K meaning potassium, yes ma'am. And it also has a lot of micronutrients like boron, manganese, all your micronutrients. It also has humic and fulvic acid in it, and a carbon source. So that carbon source is also really going to help those products get into the soil and also into the plant.
Yes, that's very good, because we're talking about putting a lot of carbon into our growing medium now, and this is a wonderful source for that then.
It is. Basically, you take a really, really rich soil that's teeming with biology, and you put it in a big bag, soak it in water, and that's kind of what we're getting. So we're getting all the benefits of a compost or a topsoil, but we're actually adding that to the lawn with a liquid product.
And you spray these on the lawn?
We do. So this is the basis of pretty much all of our applications, and these products go in at key times of the year.
Okay. Okay. Now, speaking of key times of the year, September is literally around the corner, and in my book, September is grass seed sowing time.
It is. It is time for aeration. It is time for seeding. It is time to rejuvenate the lawns that are out there right now. So seeding is really, really important, especially after the type of summer that we've had.
Yes, yes. And so is there, real quickly, we've just got a little bit of time, is there one seed better than the other that you all prefer, or?
We use a high quality turf type tall fescue.
Okay.
We get ours from Pennington. We've gone through a lot of their trials and tests, and they make them drought tolerant, they make them disease tolerant. So with a lot of testing, and they do a lot of testing on their stuff, we've kind of custom tailored a blend for this area and the transition zone.
Fantastic, because this is a picky spot.
This is a tough spot, so this
Yes.
is a great seed. It gives a really, really good end result.
Fantastic, so that you can start with a good, strong plant to then be able to nurture and to create a beautiful lawn with.
We're creating a building block, and that building block is going to create a good lawn next year as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing this with you. I'm sure some folks have some questions that they're going to want answered.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, certainly. Truly appreciate it. So, and right now, let's go take a look at the plant of the month.
Hi, I'm Susan Viemeister, landscape designer in Central Virginia, and today I'm going to talk about hydrangea. And we have several different varieties here. This is hydrangea, PG hydrangea. We have limelight, which a lot of people are familiar with. And then this here is called pink diamond, which I like because it has a red genetics to it. So there's red in the stem, and then the flowers are a little pinker. But what I'm going to talk about more specifically here is the tardiva hydrangea. And tardiva has a wonderful upright form, and the flowers are one of the later bloomers of the Hydrangea paniculata, and it has a little more of an open flower to it. A very nice spire shape, and these hydrangeas are very easy to grow in full sun. They once they're established, they're very drought tolerant. They have very few pests and diseases. And a little trick, if you want to grow them in deer country, would be to protect them for the first few years and then prune them up as you would a crepe myrtle, and prune them up so that they're out of the range of the deer. And then you can have hydrangeas in your own yard. Another wonderful quality of the Hydrangea paniculata is that it's great for cutting. You can cut it for fresh by cutting it the night before, let it soak in a bucket overnight, and then use it in your arrangement. And or you can also cut them and dry them, and that's done well by hanging them in a cool, dark place until they're dry, and then you can use them in an arrangement. There's lots of different shapes with these different varieties here, so we have lots to pick from. A unique characteristic of the hydrangea flower is that it actually has two different kinds of flowers on each panicle. There's the sterile flower as well as the fertile flower. It's the sterile flower that's so showy. The sepals are very large, and that's what we really look at. The fine texture that you get comes from the fertile flowers, which are much smaller, and our pollinators don't really care. They go for both of them. The Hydrangea paniculata is wonderful because in the late summer, when our perennials are really peaked and starting to fall down, we have this wonderful blooming shrub. It's the last hydrangea to bloom in the hydrangea group, and it's a wonderful way to end the summer season of flowers.
Susan, thank you so much for sharing that. I do love hydrangeas, and I'm always amazed at how well they grow and how they just beautify our gardens all summer long. So thank you very much. We have Alex Kepner here from Project Green now to help us with our question and answer period. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Oh, good. We've enjoyed having you. And it's been wonderful that you can share your expertise on organic lawn care.
Sure.
Before we get started, I'd like to remind everybody that we have a wonderful Facebook page, and we're going to start our questions and answers. And if for some reason your question doesn't get answered properly, or if you have some in between, to please visit us on our Facebook page. It's filled with lots of fun information and some interesting tidbits, as well as some events coming up. So like us on Facebook, and you can keep up with everything gardening in Central Virginia. So let's get going. Alex, I'm going to start you out with what I call the typical lawn question, and it's about grubs. And I know we've got, 'tis the season, it's August, it's the time where the grubs are coming back up to the surface of the soil. But how do you recommend managing grubs in the lawn
Sure.
with Project Green?
So probably the best management tactic is an actual thick, healthy lawn, a nice deep root system, a thick, luscious lawn, because therefore the grubs don't have much to navigate around in. Beyond that, you'll see occasional wives' tales, techniques maybe you find online, but just a nice healthy lawn will really do the trick with that.
Okay. And so one way to get it is to then manage your lawn in a very healthy way, and if you end up with a high population, through management practices they will diminish?
Yeah, through management practices they will diminish. So it's one of those things where you'll find them in your lawn, but just with proper care, proper technique, you can really get rid of those little suckers.
Sounds great. Well, I know Jeanette in Charlottesville will be interested and appreciative of that question.
Absolutely.
Our next question is from Jim in Doswell, and he has a 4-year-old lilac that's giving only small blossoms, and he's wondering if you'd add anything to the soil to have it bloom better. It's in full sun. I can answer this question very easily. The first and most important thing is to remember is that lilacs need a sweeter soil than we have here in Central Virginia. So I encourage you to take a soil sample, bring it to your cooperative extension office or to a local garden center, and have the pH tested. And to get that pH as close to neutral, up to 7 or even higher as possible. They actually like a pH of 8.2, and in Richmond here, we're usually at like a 4.8 to 5.2 range, so you're going to be adding a lot of lime. Adjust that pH, and I think you'll be amazed at how much better that your lilac will be, will be growing and responding. Our next question is another one that deals with, it's from Cynthia, and it's via email, and she wanted to repeat the name of your company again, Alex.
Sure, I think I can handle that one pretty easily. The name of our company is Project Green.
Okay,
Yep.
And do you have a Facebook page?
We do have a Facebook page. We're pretty social, I guess you could say. We've got the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything along the social media platforms. So we welcome questions there. We reach out to a lot of our customers or just homeowners there. Just encourage a lot of participation.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yes.
Christine from Prince George is wondering, is it too early to chop down her hostas? They're looking a little shabby.
It's not too early if they've finished their bloom. The longer you leave them there, the more nutrients they're putting back into the tuber for next year's bloom. So waiting and being patient does have benefits. But if they really are starting to really look ratty and shabby and they've done, that's when you go ahead and take the top off and prepare them for winter.
Right, and also fall is a wonderful time to divide your hostas.
Yes.
And to share them with your friends and neighbors.
And they divide so well and so easy, so it's a good time to do that.
Yes.
And that's how you find them.
Yeah.
Don't cut them down until you're ready to divide.
Exactly. Or it's a hunt and peck.
Exactly. Have to wait till next year.
Exactly. Well, we have another question for lawns. Aiden from Richmond was wondering, how do you get a lawn that is all one color, as in the recent saying, without using chemicals?
Sure.
We'll call them synthetics, okay?
We'll call them synthetics. So
yes.
It's tricky, but as we touched on maybe in the video earlier, the technique we really try to take is to nurture the soil. Really focus on the soil, try to build an environment in the soil that is just allows the grass to have nutrients to rely upon, to reach out and to get. So again, sometimes it can seem tough in Richmond, but with proper watering techniques, proper mowing techniques, and just really nurturing the soil, it can do the trick. So there's also, I think a lot of people don't realize, they think it's only synthetic fertilizers, but there are a lot of alternatives to the synthetic fertilizers. A lot of organic fertilizers, things that are kelp-based, shale-based, things of that nature that you can also use to get you that green, healthy lawn.
So our DIYs can do this?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's one of those things where as the organic curve is coming about more so with everything we do, a lot more products are being readily available to homeowners that they can get these organic fertilizers, mostly anywhere.
Switching over from, say, a person who's used to using synthetic products to organic products, does the lawn kind of dip before it picks back up, or what's your experience?
Our experience is it does have the tendency to do so. So when your lawn is on a lot of synthetics, we kind of make the comparison that it's similar to almost like your lawn is on drugs. So you eliminate those synthetics and it's going to kind of go into remission a little bit. But once with proper usage and things of that nature, you'll see it spike back up and in turn be longer and more sustainable in the future.
Very good. Well, I have another question from Sue from Richmond.
Sure.
She started off with beautiful grass this spring and summer, but now it's all disappeared. And she wants to aerate, but there's no moisture in her soil. How does she address this? Where and how should she start?
Yeah, so aeration is all based on the right time. So sure, her lawn is probably struggling right now because of the heat we've been experiencing. So what we would suggest is just wait for everything to cool off a little bit, maybe get to middle of September, water your lawn a little bit, create a little bit moisture, or wait for a rainstorm or just some moisture to hit it, and then follow up after that. Once you aerate after a rainstorm or watering your lawn, it'll pull a lot better cores. You'll see a much better result.
Because you want to get that core down, and you want a core aerator, not a spike aerator.
Exactly, exactly. So if you try to aerate on a nice compacted, dried out lawn, it's almost like aerating a parking lot.
It's going to skip along.
In the fact you'll probably be sore for about a month. So yeah, maybe my suggestion would be water your lawn and follow up with aeration after.
And then rent that wonderful machine.
That's right.
The death machine, yep.
That's right.
Yep, so it's special.
Yes. I've got another question from Sam.
Sure.
And what is the frequency for putting down the organic fertilizer? He has tall fescue.
He has tall fescue. So the frequency we use is we do 7 times a year. And basically we're timing out those steps so that way roughly every 6 weeks we're putting down the organic fertilizer. It's one of those things where you put it down, you feed the lawn, you rejuvenate the soil, but as it starts to wear off with the climate conditions, soil conditions in Richmond, it's just one of those things about 7 times a year works out perfectly.
Okay. Charles from Goochland is now asking, how do you address weeds and the invasive grasses, with the organic solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I touched on earlier, as the organic wave comes about a little bit more with the foods we eat, with the organic lawn care, therefore products that are less synthetic or not synthetic, organic weed controls are starting to emerge in the market. So we really do a lot of due diligence. We're doing our research on what weed controls we're using, and we're just using ones that are not synthetic. So for example, one uses a white mineral oil, and what that does is that opens up the plant and kind of tricks the plant to take in any weed control necessary. So it's one of those things where as everything becomes more progressive, so do the weed controls that are emerging, coming to the market.
They've come a long way.
They've come a very long way.
A very, very long way. Wonderful. Well, we're going to pop into a peony question. Okay. Russ from Wiccahoco Church. Sorry, Russ.
It's a valiant effort.
Wicomico.
Valiant effort.
I know where the Wicomico River is anyway. But he has peonies with very small buds. He's added others nearby, and they've all got small blooms. What could be causing this?
We go back to fertility. I want to know what that's like. So have you soil sampled lately? Do we need to amend and treat that? How old's the plant? Sometimes a good division will stress a plant into better bloom the following year. So that might be something to consider for this year. Those are the 2 things that spring to my mind.
And also mulching is very important too.
Moisture.
And making sure that you have enough sunshine. They do take part shade, but only to an extent. So, and I think some people have a tendency to think they're like cast iron plants and they can grow into just about
they're
everything.
temperamental just like anything else.
They are. Well, I'm going to hit our friend over here, Alex, with the classic, how do you get rid of wild violets in the lawn?
Oh my goodness.
Good question.
Gasoline.
I love it. I love it.
Tarps, gasoline. Wild violets are probably the #1 nuisance in Richmond. They're a pain. So it's just sometimes it takes a follow-up application. So sometimes what happens is you hit the wild violets once and you'll start to see them curl a little bit, but then they'll regenerate new growth. So you just, a week later, follow up with the same thing, and usually that can destroy the wild violets.
Yeah.
So, but they are a very tough weed to kill.
Well, horticulturally, they're actually a rhizome, so they have a lot of stored food in that extended stem that's above the soil surface. So you've
takes
got
a while to exhaust them.
Yeah, you've got to exhaust them in order to win.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, Alex, thanks for sharing your expert advice on these questions.
Thank you.
And we're going to be going now out to Monticello with Peggy Cornett, and John's going to show us some wonderful things out there in that vegetable garden that is so famous. Let's take a look.
Great job. I'm here today at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello, enjoying a beautiful, warm day in the shade right now with Miss Peggy Cornett to learn about trellising. But first, before we get into that topic, let's talk about the gardens. What can you tell us about this beautiful display?
Well, we're really at the peak of season here at Monticello, and Jefferson's garden is really a remarkable site. It's 1,000 feet long, 80 feet wide.
Wow.
He grew all sorts of vegetables from all parts of the world. He divided the garden into squares, and the squares were rotated every year. We have incredible information about his garden. He kept a garden diary that gives a calendar listing of where he planted everything and where he got it. And we estimate that he grew over 330 different varieties of vegetables throughout his lifetime.
Wow.
So,
and have you gotten, are y'all growing or trying to grow
that's
all
right.
of that?
We try to, it's really constantly treasure hunt for us to search out these old varieties of vegetables. But we know that Jefferson was growing lots of things that he actually documented in his garden book, but he also was kind of vague about what they would be. So he would say I was growing an early pea or a late bean, and so we have to kind of guess what he meant. But we have wonderful sources for a lot of these old heirloom varieties, and we keep a lot, of course, here too. We save seed, and for the past 20, 30 years we've been building our stock of the historic varieties.
Sounds like super sleuthing in the garden.
Oh yeah,
That's fun.
Exactly, yes, that's right.
Now the garden is really in great shape right now. Most gardens this time of summer, it's a challenge to keep up.
That's right.
But I believe you have an event coming up.
We do. We have an event in early September, September 9th, 10th, and 11th, and it's our 10th annual Heritage Harvest Festival. And we're really excited about it this year, and the gardeners have been getting the gardens in really good shape. We've been managing to keep the deer out of the garden in various ways. And so
Always a challenge.
want to show you a few things that we're doing in the garden to really enhance the beauty of the site, because there's a lot of horizontal plantings but a lot of vertical plantings as well.
So we're going to highlight some trellis
yes,
systems?
we're going to show some trellises.
Yes, ma'am. So
the creation of our teepees for the tall beans like the Carolina Lima and the pole beans, and then we're going to show some of the different ways that we're trellising tomatoes. Of course, that's always a challenge, is what to do with your tomatoes, and so we have them on tall poles and also on kind of a split rail fence sort of arrangement, which is very attractive.
it was pretty.
Yeah.
I enjoyed seeing it as we
Yeah,
walked through the
it's
garden.
very nice. And then we also have, of course, pea sticking, or staking is a very historic way of staking twining vegetables like your English peas or your beans. Field peas. We have asparagus bean growing in that way, and we're also using the pea stakes to trellis the cucumbers and the burr gherkins, and that keeps the fruits off the ground, which is very nice. It's, you know, cucumbers can get really dirty when they're sprawling along the ground, and it keeps disease down.
Disease management
and,
was what I was about to
So
say.
yeah, and you can weave these apple branches that we trim every year into a very sturdy arrangement, a lath-like arrangement, which will hold them up. And it's a very historic technique that you can read about in English herbals, as well as Bernard McMahon's American Gardener's Calendar that Jefferson used. He talked about using these pea staking as a great deal in the garden for the vegetables and also for flowers as well.
So it's a very sustainable system too.
Exactly.
You're not purchasing anything
no,
there.
that's right.
It's all
We're
used here.
recycling all those pea branches. I mean the apple
Apple trees.
branches that we've pruned in the spring anyway. So.
Is there any disease concern about the apple trees? When I think apple trees, I think fire blight sometimes.
Well, that's not been a problem for us. So that's a good thing to think about. But fortunately, we're not maybe using it where plants would get that sort of disease. So,
Very good.
Yeah.
And that's vertical now, so we've increased the space. So
That's right,
You
yeah.
can do a lot more in a tighter space.
Yeah, and you're
by
adding a little
training.
bit of shade too, which is kind of fun.
Oh, and it's very precious right
Yes,
now,
that's
too.
right.
Yes.
So yeah, we're really getting the garden looking good, and our gardeners here today, Pat Brodowski is the vegetable gardener, and her staff, Shannon and Richard, are going to be showing some of the techniques as well.
Well, let's hear a little more about your staff. With a garden of this size and the intensity of the management of this garden, how do you get all that done?
Yes, it's a very large garden, and it can take a lot of work. And so we have, you know, a head gardener for each of the main sections, the flower, the fruit, and the vegetable garden. And then they're assisted with seasonal gardeners and rotating gardeners. For example, Richard is a rotating gardener, but he spends most of his time here in the vegetable garden. And then we also have interns. Our summer interns have been a great help, and some of them are finishing their season now, but they've come to us, one from Virginia Tech, and we get these students who are studying horticulture, and they really gain a lot from spending their summer here with us.
It doesn't get any more hands-on than this.
Oh no, that's right. They're they're right into it. And then we also have help with a group we call the Garden Ambassadors. They're volunteers, And they're really helping us to interpret the garden. A lot of them are master gardeners, so they know a lot about gardening, and people are always asking, you know, how do you grow this or that, and they can be rotating in the garden and can be on hand to help us. And they also help us with some of our special tours, like our garden tasting tour, which is a new event we're having. We just started this year, and for 4 times a week we have opportunity for people to actually have a garden tour just of the vegetable garden, and then go down into the orchard under the shade, and have the opportunity to taste a lot of the vegetables that we're growing, you know, peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers.
Kind of takes that locavore kind of food movement
exactly.
to a new level.
Tastings
this is
are
not
a big
just
thing nowadays.
Yeah,
so,
what Jefferson grew, but also now you can have some.
That's right. And it's sort of
wonderful.
what we do, of course, for the Harvest Festival too. We're having enormous numbers of tastings going on. You can taste 100 different tomato varieties, and cucumbers, and melons, musk melons, and cantaloupes. So the tasting is a big part of the Heritage Harvest Festival every year.
So Peggy, you mentioned earlier that you save seeds and use them here in the garden. Is there an opportunity for people to buy seeds as well?
That's right, absolutely. We have saved seed for many years of all kinds of crops, our vegetables and flowers. And the gardeners collect these seeds, they clean them, we package them on site, and they're available to the public at our store, our Monticello Museum shop, as well as on our online catalog. And of course, we're saving seed for our own use in the gardens every year as well. So
that is wonderful.
Yeah.
That brings it full circle.
That's right.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much for the opportunity to spend time here with you at Thomas Jefferson's Monticello and experience the garden, even on a warm day.
Thank you very much. We'd love to have you here.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like we brought Thomas Jefferson's Harvest Party here to the studio.
And tried to.
Peggy, thank you so much for the tour of the garden. I had a great time there. It was such a pretty spot. It was a brutally hot day, and thank you for your being tough and toughing that out with us.
It was really good to have you there, and I was glad to show you so many things going on in the garden, and we had a really good time.
Well, it's a busy place,
Yeah, it is.
And I can
Very
tell
busy.
from here that we've got a lot to cover. So I recognize a few plants from some of the trellising that you demonstrated and talked about.
I brought a few of the plants that Pat and Richard were trellising on the poles, and now they've already begun to fruit. For example, you saw the asparagus bean, and here are some that are beginning to dry, beautiful black seeds. This is the white cucumber that was going up on the pea stakes, and this is the West India gherkin cucumber, which is quite an interesting pickling cucumber.
It's a burr gherkin.
Burr gherkin.
Okay.
Jefferson always kept a barrel of pickles in the president's house.
Okay.
And so when you visited Jefferson, you had to eat
have a
pickles.
pickle.
Yes. And of course, many other things are coming in as well.
Tell us about the squash
green
there.
striped cushaw, which is a type of winter squash.
Okay.
And it's native to was introduced from the West Indies. Very early squash that can get quite large. I mean, it can get up to 15 or 20 pounds when it's fully ripe. But I brought a little one for us today.
Well, thank you for that. And that's a winter squash like others. It keeps
That's right.
well during the winter.
That's
it
right.
stores for a long time.
Yes, it's a very good squash. And of course, we have a lot of tomatoes coming in. One I did want to mention is a very ancient tomato, the purple calabash, which really dates to pre-Columbian Mexico. And the tomatoes, of course, are from South America, and Jefferson was growing them and eating them. He said they were common in Virginia as early as the 1780s, and he grew them in his vegetable garden every year after his retirement in 1809. And then I mentioned these cucumbers, but I also wanted to point out some of the peppers. And we have a lot of peppers in the garden this year.
Assortment here,
yes,
too.
quite an assortment. This one is well named. It's the bull's horn pepper, rather than the bull nose pepper, which is what you normally buy, the round pepper. This is, it's also a sweet pepper, though.
Okay.
And then I have a few hot peppers here. We're all familiar with cayenne, and that was an annual vegetable in the Jefferson's garden. This one is called the fish pepper, and it's actually an African-American heirloom that was probably 19th century, and it's become very popular not only because it's a nice flavored hot pepper, but also because of the beautiful variegation. And so people are actually growing it as an ornamental. And Yeah.
peppers put in pots with other plants to
Exactly.
make a real nice, pretty planter.
And it's some of the peppers will ripen with striping on them, and here we just see yellow and green, but there can be red as well.
And
so
is it also a hot pepper?
it's a hot pepper,
Okay.
yes.
And how hot is this one?
This one is the hot pepper.
You warned me earlier not to
Yes.
touch.
This is the Texas bird pepper.
Okay.
Now, this was a pepper Jefferson received from an Army captain who was stationed in San Antonio, Texas. And
Okay.
it's native in that part of the country, in Texas down into Mexico. It's one of the hottest peppers. Whenever you see a pepper that has a bird in the title, you know that only birds can eat it because birds don't have taste buds, and they
Okay.
actually love these peppers, especially mockingbirds. So we saw some green ones in the piece leading up to this, but here we actually see some of the pretty red ones. And Jefferson was interested in this pepper because he thought it would be a hardier pepper in the garden. And in fact, it does stand up to the cold better than some of these other peppers that wilt down as soon as you get a light frost.
Okay.
And it'll actually, you'll see it out in the garden all winter with these red peppers hanging on.
Well, let's talk
Very
about
hot.
some of these things over here.
Okay, now I brought some of the odd things in the garden. Jefferson, of course, was very proud of bringing artichokes to table. It wasn't an easy thing to do in Virginia. This is a Mediterranean plant. And here we see the flower that's fully opened. When you're eating an artichoke, you're eating the flower bud.
Okay.
The bracts that you peel down.
Looks a little more
yeah,
familiar
you
here.
put into the butter and all that stuff.
Yes.
And so, but when you let it go on to flower, it'll actually dry and become a nice everlasting
It is
flower.
beautiful.
We use these in our wreath Christmas decorations.
The
every
purple
year.
color really jumps out
Beautiful.
at you. I feel like a fall motif here.
Yeah,
with
that's
all the
right.
colors.
And next to
What's
it, then,
this?
this is the flower of the cardoon,
Okay.
which is a cousin of the artichoke. They're both thistles. And the cardoon is a plant that's eaten, you don't eat the flower head of the cardoon, you eat the mid-vein of the leaf. I brought a leaf that's kind of a little disenchanted right now, but it's wilting a bit, but basically you're going to cut the green part of the leaf off and eat the mid-vein.
So that's this guy here.
That's right.
So let's
And
pull this
the
out.
mid-vein,
We'll make a little mess,
the best
but
way
we'll
to
be
eat
okay.
it
Let's
is
come over
to
here.
first blanch it.
Okay.
So in other words, you want to keep it white.
See that.
And you cut this part of the leaf off, and then you'll cook it, saute it, or cook it and bake it. But blanching is important for a lot of vegetables, and that's why I brought the sea kale pot in today, because
And we saw that in the video.
yeah, you
I didn't know
did.
what that was in the
yes,
garden.
That's right.
It was
well,
just
it's one of
behind
the
me.
most asked questions in the vegetable garden. We have the pots in the garden that you saw have been out there for probably 30 years, and we leave them out there year round. They're beautiful, kind of
Okay.
an ornamental piece, but they're actually functional.
Now, I'm going to bring this over
notice
here
that,
very
yes.
carefully.
You take the lid off, and it's an open-ended pot. So
show
what you
that
do is you
off.
put it over top of a perennial kale called sea kale in the early spring, and you keep the leaves, you shut out the light, so you keep the leaves will grow inside there, and they'll stay white and sweet, because once they get green and the chlorophyll develops in them, they get kind of bitter.
Okay. And I
So-
think we've got time for maybe one more plant.
Yeah.
So let's
Well,
talk.
that's sesame, and Jefferson again was growing sesame. He called it Benny.
Okay.
It's from Africa, and it is a seed and a plant that he thought held great promise because he wanted to produce oil.
Okay.
To have a local domestic source
Sesame seed
of
oil.
sesame seed oil. So he was getting all his friends to grow it. He's sharing seeds. He even produced oil and had a blind taste testing when he was president in the president's house, and the sesame oil won, the taste test. So
he truly was a locavore before his
that's
time.
right. Yes, he was promoting all of these unusual vegetables.
We're trying to grow them here anyway.
That's right. That's right. Some were successful and some weren't. But
Well, that
we always
really is
try.
enjoyable. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for the time that you've spent with us today.
Yes.
And we'll get some questions here in just a few minutes. But now it's time to kick it to our tip from Maymont.
Bet.
Many times when we're out in our gardens working around certain plants, we consider them thorns in our sides because of the way we get some nice prickles from them. But not every wound comes from a thorn, because with plants there's thorns and there's spines and there's prickles. And I'd like to share them with you right now, what the difference is. Over here we have a nice hardy orange, and you can see that the quote-unquote thorns are green, and those are actually a spine, and a spine is a modified leaf, and so they'll come out green. And here on our hardy orange we have very prominent green spines. But we have a barberry right here, and you can see the younger spines are green, but as they age, they turn brown. And this is a Julian barberry, 3-spine barberry. Now, because they're modified leaves, sometimes the spines are the color of the leaf, and you can see here with our Crimson Queen barberry that our spines are a burgundy color as well as a green color. Many times we think of thorns on rose bushes, but that's not true at all. They're actually prickles. And prickles are kind of like the hair of our head, and they're extensions of the lower layer epidermis of the plant. A true thorn is a modified stem, and you'll see them as coming out brown and being brown throughout their whole life they're on that plant. And this here is an Elaeagnus or Elaeagnus pungens or Russian olive, and this truly has thorns. They're just modified stems, or they're brown right from the very beginning. Here at Maymont, this plant here is one we're focusing on to try to remove it because it's just so invasive throughout our landscape. And so I encourage you to think twice before you include this plant in your garden. So next time that you're out gardening and you feel that wonderful ouch, take a close look to see if it's a thorn, if it's a spine, or if it's a prickle. You know, in gardening, we get so inquisitive about things, and we get so many questions. And if some questions arise between now and then that you come to tune into us again, you can always send them to the Times-Dispatch, and Richard Nunnally just may pick them up and use them in his article. The information is right there on your screen. And we've got a lot of questions, speaking of them today. But first, Peggy, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Great to be here, as always.
As always. We always enjoy you coming to visit us. So, and I understand you've got a harvest festival coming up.
I do. I do want to mention we're having a big event at Monticello. It's our 10th annual Heritage Harvest Festival. This is the booklet for it. And
September the 10th.
September 10th, that's right. We have dozens of speakers and about 80 different programs. We'll have tastings, as I mentioned, tomatoes, melons, everything. We have a lot of children's activities. It's a great day for the family.
Fantastic.
And petting zoo and walks and tours through the gardens and workshops on composting and sustainable gardening, and so it's really a wonderful day, and we hope everyone can come out. It's a great day trip from Richmond for sure.
Wonderful. Is all the information on the website?
It should be on the website. Go to heritageharvestfestival.com or go to the monticello.org website.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
We've also got, after that, you can go to Monticello one weekend, and then you can go out to Lewis Ginter to their Plant Fest the following weekend on the 16th and 17th. And they're going to have free admission to the Plant Fest, but of course regular garden admission. And you can go to their website, Lewis Ginter's website, for more information on that as well. So we've got, 'tis the season, fall is here.
Busy time, yes.
Speaking of busy, we have quite a number of questions. It is wonderful. So I'm going to start off with some vegetable questions first for you, though, okay, Peggy? Because we've got somebody who's here. We've got Jamie from Rockville. She's planted some of Jefferson's beans. The vines are very prolific, growing, but there are no blossoms, and she's concerned she won't get those beautiful purple pods. And you know, it's their first year growing them. Do you have any advice on that?
Is it the hyacinth bean?
Sounds like it with the purple pods, yes.
They're starting to bloom now. They're always a little late to get started, but they should be flowering and producing those beautiful pods that will actually last until the first hard frost. So,
I love those pods.
Hopefully, her beans will start flowering soon, but I'm not sure. Sunlight might be an issue if it's not in full sun. That will definitely
that would
slow
definitely
it down.
impede it. Yes.
And when she planted it, when it started.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus a cloudy May.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But I've got one here, Henry from Dinwiddie, and he's asking, is it time to plant that winter salad garden and the collards and such? What are you saying?
I would, yes. Collards are a great vegetable. We're going to actually have a big workshop on collards at the festival this year, so definitely want to plant the greens. It's time to plant lettuces can go on the ground. It's dry. This is the problem now. So you want to either water it well and keep it watered when you're starting to get the seed in the ground. But now is the time to start planting your fall garden for sure.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yes, looking forward to it.
I am too, exactly.
I love the cool weather.
Amen. Alex, we've got one question. Organic treatment to kill wiregrass, is there any for that?
There currently isn't. Wiregrass is just such a tough grass to kill. So
Besides the old-fashioned way of trying to pull it out, which is not usually that successful, there really isn't anything too organic right now.
Deep-rooted.
Yes.
It's very deep-rooted.
It's an
Moves quickly.
exercise in futility. But if
It
you want to
is.
do something positive, how about seeding and dethatching?
Yeah, so, and that's another way to target wiregrass is you can try to choke it out by seeding and just try to smother it out. Dethatching, sometimes it depends on how much thatch is there. Aeration can usually serve as a good way to dethatch, and it's a lot more, less of a process when collecting all the thatch. So as long as the thatch isn't too heavy, sometimes a little bit of thatch is some good organic material on the grass.
How about if you're reseeding? Should you try your best to, if you have thick thatch?
If you've got thick thatch, yeah, dethatching is definitely beneficial, or just really aerating very, very heavily, just to try to loosen the thatch up, kind of break it up some and get it out of the way, so that way the seed can get direct contact with the soil.
And now is the time.
And now is the time.
It's great. So, I've got a question. Does anybody have any input on organic mosquito control?
There are plants that you can plant, but I can't name them, that'll help in your landscape.
Well, the mosquito, the dunks you put in to prevent the
Exactly.
mosquito larvae.
And we actually,
that really is effective, I think.
and we actually do a lot of organic mosquito control. We're using a lot of different types of oils, rosemary oils, cedar oils. The mosquitoes are soft-bodied, so they're a little bit more sensitive to a lot of these oils. So when it hits, these oils hit the mosquitoes, it makes them,
Spray it on.
basically smothers them. So, and it only targets the mosquitoes and not any beneficial insects.
Well, with the interest in the Zika virus too, we're from extension standpoint, we're promoting making sure there's no standing water in your landscape.
Absolutely.
So if there's any stagnant water anywhere, dump that pot, get rid of that, whatever it is, so that there's no place for the mosquitoes to lay their larvae. They don't travel a great big distance from where they're hatched, so if you can do that, you reduce your exposure.
And at my yard, that means going around the downspouts, and I have all these black corrugated
Those
pipes.
are the worst.
And I actually take them off, empty them, and put them back on to
Yes.
make sure I get
Yeah.
rid of that little tablespoon
little
that.
water.
And that might be some place to put some of that dunk
Dunk in
down
there,
through
too.
those, because some
Yeah.
of those pipes you can't pull up if they've been
Exactly.
buried in the
Yeah,
ground.
and standing water, of course, yes.
Yep.
Peggy, Laura via email is asking, she has a hydrangea that she's had for several years in a large planter. It's doing well, but in the last 2 weeks, the leaves have started to die. Do you have any idea of what could be causing her hydrangea leaf problem?
Well, I wonder if she's keeping it evenly watered. I think I've seen a lot of stress when they get dry like that. Their leaves start to dry up. But maybe it might need to be repotted too. It
I
might
was
be
just going to say, yes. I found out, I don't know about you, but right now at Maymont, we're watering our containers frequently, and we're
Yes.
having a problem where the soil is, coming in together and shrinking off the sides of the pot, and it's deceptive to have water be coming through when it's really not thoroughly wet, the whole container.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize how much you have to water something to get a deep watering in a pot. You just really soak that pot.
Absolutely, it's very tough, and it takes patience to pour it down in there. So let's hope those are helpful hints for her to follow. So Gerald from Richmond, she wants to move an azalea. Is it too early, or should she wait until more closer into fall?
Okay,
That's you.
I'll get that one. I prefer fall. I would rather wait for that plant to rest. I don't want to stress it too much as we go into the winter, because it's still working. It's still storing nutrients. So I would wait until fall, till we head into dormancy. You're still going to stress the plant. It's going to probably need a prune as it comes out in spring, but that's my recommendation.
And also, you mentioned pruning, but also another school of thought is that all of the hormones to initiate root growth are up in those tips.
Right.
So prune out what's wilting and dead, but be really aware of the fact that what is live is needed to get some good live root growth
What I
down
mean by
too.
prune is see what survives the transplant, because it'll
Okay.
die back sometimes. You take care of that dead material.
Thank you then. Okay, Sharon has asked, she's arrived home this evening to find the hibiscus that she planted last fall half dead. One branch is all shriveled, the leaves are crumpled. Oh, I'm so sorry. What a way to come home. The other branch seems to be okay. Any ideas what could be wrong and what to do? It's a hibiscus. Let's pretend it's a swamp hibiscus.
Yeah, I was thinking swamp.
Multi-stem.
Yes, something might have broken the stem.
Maybe a critter.
Yeah, could be. We've had problems with that too, where something has damaged the base of the stem and you don't really realize, but all of a sudden it's in a permanent wilt. And
And you just have to cut
you
the
just have to
stem
cut
out.
it down. It's not going to die, but yeah.
No.
Yeah.
The root system's very
The root
strong
systems
there.
are fine, so you could just cut it back and And unfortunately, you won't enjoy it for the rest of the fall, but you'll have it next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a permanent situation.
Yes, that's right.
So I've got, hold on, I wanted to save that one. We've got some squirrels were busy and very forgetful last year, and now we have too many oak seedlings. Is there somewhere that they can donate these? No, I'm sorry.
I get that way. I want to pot them up.
You might want to call your local PTA to see if they're having a fair of some sort, and they might want to use it as a same.
But like
With the red oaks.
some of them, willow oaks, they come up a lot.
Well, we have 1 minute left, folks, so we have an answer. One short, real quick. Virginia wild ferns and goochland useful for? Are the Virginia wild ferns and goochland useful for anything? They have piles of them, and they look very, very old. They want to dig them up and save them before cutting the timber. Yeah, that's very difficult. You've got some ferns are in very long places for a very long time, and we'll answer this on Facebook as well as all the other questions that we haven't gotten to. So, John, next month, where are we going to be going to?
We're talking about invasives. We're going to Charlottesville and meeting with an extension agent.
Fantastic. And I'm going to be going out to Gloucester to talk to Brent and Becky and learning about organic gardening techniques that they've got. As always, we're going to look forward to seeing you then. And thank you for watching us on Virginia Homegrown.
Thank you for watching Virginia Homegrown. For information on how to become a financial partner, please contact Lanny Fields at 804-560-8226 or lfields@ideastations.org.